It was just like, wow, you can still reach your dreams. It wasn't just their talent. It was people they would talk about that was way better than them in their hometown or that they played against that wasn't a McDonald's All-American, you know? So it's just, we can apply that to anywhere in our life of like, man, you know, do what you need to do, make the sacrifices, work hard, you can reach your dreams. And even the same for me and Corey in this film, this was a dream of ours, you know, to get to a long form film, to make it on a big platform, share it worldwide, you know, meal ticket.
It's crazy. Like waking up yesterday and being able to go to Amazon. As soon as you open up, you got meal ticket right there. I think having that opportunity to make our first film, it be on Amazon, and then be able to tell this story about such a historic game. Nobody know who created the McDonald's All-American game. You know, I think when we were asking people that question during the interview, we would get all kind of random answers to it, you know. So for us to be able to really tell that story and show the history of how it started, how it came about, how it's still here, it means a lot. And I feel like because we were the first people to be trusted with telling this story, to putting this history out there, that just makes us a part of the history now too, which makes us feel like super excited. And the fact that we're able to put a light on Bob Gagan, tell his story, and show people that he created this game that may be the reason why you know who your favorite player is to this day, why they had the career that they had. And maybe now that this film is out here, his story's out here, he may wind up going to the NBA Hall of Fame, Naismith Hall of Fame.
From top journalists and authors to rising influencers and insiders, Hoopsology brings you the voices driving basketball forward. With elite guests and sharp analysis, Matt, Justin, and Alan keep you plugged into everything hoops. From downtown, boom shakalaka.
Carlton, Corey, thanks for joining me. Truly appreciate it. Before we jump into the documentary, which I have seen, which I appreciate you guys putting it together because I feel like the McDonald's All-American game is something that all basketball fans should be aware of, is somewhat the genesis of a pro player's journey, both men's or women's. So I'm grateful that this piece of content exists. But before we get into that, we have a bit of a tradition on our show. We cover basketball culture, what makes the game of basketball so great. So take this question any way you want it. What is your first or favorite basketball memory? Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, let me think about this. I'll take a shot first of what I think. I'm coming from Chicago. Me and Corey are both from Chicago. We used to win so much. It was almost like a holiday in the 90s. Where when Jordan came back for the second stint, I almost became a hater in Chicago because it was just like too obvious. It's like, what if the Jazz beat them this year? You know, like, man, Jordan wins all the time. So I remember that last year when he pushed Byron Russell and made that shot, I felt like the pride of Chicago basketball. I felt grateful for being able to live through that and seeing it live, experiencing it. And I was like, man, fuck the Jazz. So I don't know if I can curse on him.
You can. Feel free.
You know, and we just went out in the streets, run through the streets, and super happy, man. But Jordan's, 98 shot on Byron Russell and the steal on Karl Malone. That's basketball right there.
Yeah. I'll keep it in the Chicago Bulls era. I think like Carlton said, we're Chicago kids, so I just remember the 90s and the Bulls being so dominant. But for me, I think I got really excited about the Bulls when they got Dennis Rodman. I think once the worm came to the Bulls, I remember being a little kid and just randomly asking my mom, like, I remember being in like grammar school, grade school at that time, all the kids just wanted Nikes and everything like that. But I randomly wanted a pair of like the Dennis Rodman Converse shoes. And I just remember ordering them from like the JCPenney catalog and just going through like this Dennis Rodman worm phase. And I remember McDonald's had the cups that when you put cold stuff in it, like his hair would change to be different colors and things like that. But yeah, I think that's when I got really excited because I felt like that was that second wave. It was the question of like, could Mike and Scotty do it themselves? Then that off season, they bring in, some protection, some muscle, and the rest is history.
No, that's incredible. I'm biased, so those two memories are close to me, being a huge Bulls fan. Just with Dennis Rodman. I was also a huge pro wrestling fan. Seeing him just like, playing in the NBA finals and then all of a sudden he's beating up Karl Malone on WCW. I mean, it couldn't get any better than that. As just a young kid in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just incredible.
What a
So
time.
let's jump into this documentary. I understand this is your first directorial project of a documentary. So could you go into just the origin of how this came about, your thoughts on taking this project on, and just kind of your impressions on putting this all together?
So it came about back in 2022. I think we're like right at the 4-year mark for when we started production. Carlton and I, we own our own full service production company, Tony and Yates, and we would get hired and do a lot of work for Netflix. Had a chance to work on a lot of high profile projects with them. But because people knew of our Chicago origins, when the Kanye West documentary came about, directed by Cootie and Chike, we got assigned, the opportunity to help create for that. And while working on some of the supporting material, promo content for it, Cootie and Chike were like, hey, you guys remind us a lot of ourselves. You guys are cool. And, what do you all want to do next? Like, what are some of your dreams? And Carlton, let it be known and said it from the mountaintop. We want to make a movie. We want to direct a feature-length film. And so they said, that'll happen for you guys. Just keep doing what you're doing. And little did we know, just a few weeks later, they would be reaching out to us, telling us about a potential opportunity to direct a film that came across their desk that they wanted to EP and be able to help us, fulfill that, making our first feature-length film. They told us about the history of the McDonald's All-American game. And we were like, again, being from Chicago, that game has passed through that city so many times within, like, at the time when we started production, they were celebrating 45 years. So the history that the game had with the city, Carlton could tell you about his memories of actually attending the game when he was a child. So it was just really a really exciting thing that came our way.
Yeah. It's super exciting. It felt like we were born to tell the story once it came across like our desk of like, man, this is destiny. Just from being fans of the game and growing up watching basketball over the years. And, I remember in the 95 game, I'm dating myself, but like I remember seeing that on CBS and Kevin Garnett was representing Chicago there. And it was just a moment, you just felt it like it was on, my dad and everybody was watching it. So that was like, almost like peak McDonald's All-American game. But to come back and to work with Cootie and Chike, these are directors that we looked up to. Benji was a big deal in Chicago, and I feel like in the sports community and that story, as far as one of the best sports documentaries, in my opinion, ever made. And, we get a chance to work with them, telling the McDonald's All-American game story. So just a beautiful opportunity and experience. And, I mean, it's a challenge, man. Like you said, man, this game means a lot to people. It touched so many generations. The impact is made in sports. So we felt that pressure in having to tell the story. But as artists, we did our best to push our agenda, our vision. And, the miracle of it all is to get all of these big brands to agree and come together. Everybody put their pride aside. And, we came on a united front. And I'm glad that we were able to get over the edge. For a minute, we was like, will it ever see the light of day? I don't know. 4 years is a long time, man. But the fact that we got it here and that it exists and now it's like, it's surreal. It's mind blowing to be in this moment.
So can you go over in the documentary, you interview, a lot of elder statesmen of the game of basketball, and they are media trained, or they're used to being in documentaries and just being interviewed by journalists, etc. But you're also interviewing a lot of these high school players at the time that, but I feel like in 2020, whatever, in terms of when you first got the footage, that is a different time compared to players interview like in the 90s in terms of, not being media trained. So how did that work in terms of interviewing the players that you got, I think during the 2022 McDonald's All-American game, especially like Flajay Johnson, who was like, I think America's Got Talent. Like she was already like, exposed to the national audience. And she looked like a superstar, and she's in high school. So how was it trying to evoke and just get, genuine emotions and reactions, out of these high school players without them sounding media trained?
Yeah. I would say for the kids coming in, like Flajay, just top of mind, it's so funny. Like when she came, in the hotel to check in, she saw us with the cameras, and she just ran up to us like, oh, y'all need to film me. Y'all got to film me. So like, to your point, yes, they are a little bit social media. They're used to talking a lot more and creating content. But the thing about it, what we saw was that the game meant so much to these kids. It was a big moment. And granted, like, it's like a reverse feeling, but what happened is we interviewed the kids first in 2022, and we're learning like they still a little shy. They still teenagers. They may have filmed themselves on an iPhone, but not with cinema cameras, and producer really talking them through stuff. So they're still vulnerable, and they are close to their parents. So certain questions immediately triggered things that created this emotion immediately. That Corey and I feel like it was a natural thing in navigating the young kids, because we kind of just connected with their struggle or what they was trying to get to and the sacrifices that they went through. So as soon as you bring stuff up like that and they're living it real time, they're living it, they couldn't fake it. If they may have had in their mind what it was going to be like, and they always think things are social media when they don't even know it like documentary. It's a film. So I think it caught them off guard. And they're like, whoa, they just asked me what, the sacrifices my parents made. Nobody's ever asked me that. And then they just start crying, in comparison to when I say it was the reverse, because we talked to the legends and they are media trained and everything. Like, it's just, it's I think it's more straightforward in how complex you can talk in the stories. Our challenge with them was more memory. Dominique Wilkins, like, man, that was a long time ago, man. 79. Come on now, y'all. But like, it's cool. Everybody loves telling their story of their origin story of being the man or the top girl in their high school, in those days and time. Yeah, that was definitely a thing for sure, of like, the kids were, some were trained, but some of them were very shy, and they still felt like they were teenagers. You could feel the difference in talking to the adults when we got there.
Yeah, I think over time they got used to seeing us, because that experience of how we filmed the 2022 game and the 2023 game, we were there for pretty much like the full week. The process of seeing them check in, get their room assignments, the daily schedule, when they go in and they get sized up for their jerseys, they get photos taken and get their first official basketball card made with their stats on the back. So when we arrived and we just started to see like their natural excitement and things like that, I think Carlton and I were still like, let's scope it out, let's introduce ourselves, let's get them to warm up to us. But it was just so much interesting things happening from the start of us even pulling up. And I just remember saying to Carlton, like, yo, we got to start filming right now. Like, let's get the cameras going now and just start capturing all of this. So them seeing our faces from the moment they got there and being with them all week through the last day where they have the men's game and the women's game, they started to warm up. And I was always naturally impressed by some of their poise, because I think back to when I was 17, 18, they're still shy, like Carlton said, but I don't even think I would have been at that level to be able to express myself the way that they were able to, and be so vulnerable and let us into their world. Really, the them being so knowledgeable and understanding where they are and the platform that they're playing on, and knowing that depending on how well they do that week, it could potentially set their trajectory and be able to change their lives forever.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting observation you made, especially athletes in 2026, to where I think they are more present. I think there's also a lot more information, and they're put in a spotlight at a lot earlier age. So I don't think it's not much of a shock to them to get that much attention. So I think that's very astute that you make that observation. I want to ask you about a particular different section of the documentary. You have, I don't know, the best way to describe it's like a scrapbook vision board of like kind of the history of the McDonald's All-American game. I thought that was so creative. How were you able to pull that off within the documentary? Because I thought that was very unique in terms of seeing that kind of the history of the McDonald's All-American game told through that creative approach.
Yeah, man, I feel like I was telling Corey when we were like talking through the ideas of it, of, thinking about us as sports fans growing up. I was one of those kids that used to cut out Slam magazine, posters, and my room was just, I don't even remember the color of my wall. Like it was just filled with wrestling. To your point, I had the wrestling, WrestleMania magazine, SummerSlam, and I had a bunch of Sports Illustrated and everything cut out. And we were trying to find creative ways to, make like spice up or spruce up the story of, history and everything, where, how do we get all of this great archival and these visuals to kind of not feel like it's a mundane kind of approach of which you see every frame, but then like you still get the story, right? And so we've played around with it before in our like previous projects, with like Corey said, like with Netflix and stuff, but to be able to execute it made a lot of sense off of most of those kids like that grew up wanting to be a McDonald's All-American did the same thing. They cut out stuff and posters, and I think it just made sense of being like a collage kind of feel to kind of be put together and stacked in bringing a story, but almost like what do you call those? Oh, I'm losing it. Like a scrapbook. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you have your scrapbook, or your dream board or whatever is kind of in place to help tell the story. But we're glad that it landed. It was definitely a risk, but once like the stakeholders and the EP saw it, they were blown away for sure of the approach of it. And we wanted to make something timeless too, but just connected to, teenagers in the McDonald's game, because that's what it is. It's the youth. But I'm glad that it really resonated when you saw it for the first time.
Next question for you. I noticed you obtained a lot of footage from practice, and I'm wondering how are you able to obtain that footage? Where there's any difficulty? Because practice is a very vulnerable place for players, right? Like, some players might not look good in a certain practice. Some embarrassing things might go down in practice. It's not usually meant for public consumption. So how were you able to get that footage? Did you running any roadblocks there?
No, I think no roadblocks. I think for them knowing that we wanted to tell the story that we were setting out to tell, people knew that we had to have like that all access, So when it came to practice, that's exactly the mindset we went into it with, knowing that we were going to get a lot of those vulnerable, real moments. That's when players were really going to be going at it, because you get invited to the game based off of what you do with your team outside of the McDonald's world. But once you get there, you're still competing now, for playing time. You want to impress those coaches. You want to impress the scouts that are there. There's still kids who are like undecided as to far what college they're going to go to. So they still might need those opportunities to be able to show people who are looking at them what they're capable of doing. and they go all out at the practice. Like practice is different than the game. Like once you get to the game and those lights come on and the cameras are there and ESPN is there broadcasting, you know, they preach more, let's go out there, let's be loose, let's have fun. But at practice is no, let's get after it, let's be dogs, you know.
Yeah, because also, man, like they do have an all-star game now in college basketball, but for majority of the existence of the McDonald's game, there was no like all-star game that happened after, you know, people went from high school into college, or these players was like this is the only time they all are playing together. So that's big for scouts, you know, NBA scouts. This is the first time you can see, you know, Carmelo on the court with Amari Stoudemire, and like they all are, you know, going at it and just trying to make sure they're trying to show like I'm really that nice, you know. And practice is really where they try to show it. That's what we learned at the game, because they say this for the scouts, it's never another time where they get that chance to see all of those players on the court at the same time, you know. So, and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, it's so true. Like 2007 is a great class. They got Kevin Love, Derrick Rose, James Harden. They were all hooping, you know, but they never did that again, you know, until maybe, you know, if they became NBA All-Stars and they did it. But to like evaluate them, that's like a really good evaluation platform is the McDonald's game. So we was in there and it's just scouts galore.
And it was fun. It was fun to do that too. Because once we finished doing it in 2022, we knew that was going to be a lot of like the meat and potatoes of the film, you know, because once we had captured the contemporary feel of the game, it was going to be, to your point, Justin, where it was like, how do we use the collages and the timelines to be able to go back and transition and hear the parallel stories between the legends of the game with the current players and the sacrifices and everything they had to do to continue to make a name for themselves at the practices. It was really good to be able to get access to that type of footage and be able to be on the court and get those cinematic moments where we can make the audience feel like they're actually on the court with those players. And I think once we started to shop the film and it came across the realm of Amazon, they liked what they saw too. And I remember one of the first things when we partnered with Amazon on the film was, we got to go do the game in 2023. You know, we need some more of that, especially with that year being the Bronny James year, the Julius Hawkins year. And it was like, let's get some more of that raw feel from that crop of young kids playing in the game so that we can keep building there.
Are there any challenges as first-time directors that you ran into that you didn't anticipate, or did everything go according to plan in terms of what you had in mind for the documentary and then the final product that came to be?
That's funny, man. Oh, yeah. I mean, tons of hurdles, tons of obstacles, too many to name. But, you know, it just takes perseverance, man, and really, you know, rolling with the punches. Like I said, it's a lot of brands that were involved in this project that was behind it. So to get everybody on board, you just really have to be flexible. We've had great ideas that we wanted to execute, and you know, they're going to get shot down, and then you got to figure out, all right, so how can we know that the sports world or like the culture will love this, you know, so we just have to find a way to protect the integrity of the film. We don't want it to be a commercial. We constantly, that was our thing. We don't want it to be just a commercial of the McDonald's game. But we found a way. I felt we've done our best to like be as honest as we could in the storytelling. But you know, also we still getting this support from the big brands. But yeah, as first time directors, you know, we had to really be choosy on what hill we wanted to die on, you know, as we were working through telling the story and crafting it. But I feel like for the end result of it, I think it's masterful to be able to get so much information and so many visuals into 90 minutes, like with the history of the game everything that we had at our fingertips, it's like, I can't even believe that we made this film make sense in, 96 minutes. I can't believe it, because there is endless stories, and everybody interviews was just like, hey, we're only going to sit with somebody for maybe, 40 minutes. It turns into an hour and a half, because they just going and it's so good. Or like, people that couldn't make them film that we got, But I think it was a great experience and a lot we learned in the process for sure. And, I think we're good. We're proud of like the outcome of what we were able to create and get out there,
Yeah, the sacrifice of what gets left on the cutting room floor. I think that was a really good lesson learned to take away from like doing our first like feature length film like this was everything can't like make it. Everything can't make it into the movie. Carlton and I would joke like during the process of like, man, this movie might turn out to be 3 hours. It's like we're just gonna make an epic here, and then it's just like, no, we can't make a 3-hour movie. Okay, so what can we do? And then we just start spinning our wheels creatively. And one of the films that we really wanted our film to hold a high standard to is like a documentary like Hoop Dreams. So a lot of people, when they talk about what's one of the greatest basketball docs made, Hoop Dreams will come up most of the time. And us being kids from Chicago, it meant a lot to us because so the Chicago story is there. But we started to even look at that, and we looked at the runtime of what Hoop Dreams was. And then we started to say, what if we can like pay homage to that by making our film the exact runtime that Hoop Dreams was, and have that be like some sort of little Easter egg tied to it. And then even that was just like, hey, you got to cut more, so it was just like, what kind of like story pods could we sacrifice to be able to still tell such a really solid story, giving people all the history they needed. And I think that we did a good job at doing it and learned what could be removed, what we could leave for fans of the game to want to go out and research and do more study on themselves. For an example, Carlton put a lot of energy into telling this super dope story about Paul Pierce and the record that he broke for Michael Jordan's scoring record. And I just remember like seeing Carlton's cuts of it and getting goosebumps and seeing like the way, the direction that we started to go in it. But then we get to the point of, can we cut some of that out and leave the fans wanting more, so maybe they want to go and research it more and find out more info about that. But then also knowing that later in the film, you find out that the record gets broken anyway by another player. So does it really even matter to tell if Paul broke it or not, once we find out a few moments later in the film that it does get broken by somebody else? So there's a lot of different things in there where it was, how do we need to really finish this story? Can we leave it for the fans' imagination? Can they go research it themselves? How do we keep the story moving and keep people entertained?
Final question for you real quick. When fans check out this documentary, what are the impressions that you think they should leave with when viewing this doc in the McDonald's All-American game overall?
I think I keep saying it. I feel, for one, is dreams. So we're definitely in, especially now in 2026, we're in some weird times, as we all know. And, people need a little bit of hope. It's nice. March Madness is right now. So,
right.
People get to get away, watch some good basketball, nice, feel good stuff. And I think that's what we were aiming for. And we understood the goal of what the EPs wanted to, like, just feel good. Something that's feel good and reinvigorates dreams, man. Just keeps people, have hope and purpose in life, because that's what we felt throughout the process of making this film, from the interviews, the stories that gave us goosebumps. It was just like, wow, you can still reach your dreams. It wasn't just their talent. It was people they would talk about that was way better than them in their hometown or that they played against that wasn't a McDonald's All-American, you know? So it's just, we can apply that to anywhere in our life of like, man, you know, do what you need to do, make the sacrifices, work hard, you can reach your dreams. And even the same for me and Corey in this film, this was a dream of ours, you know, to get to a long form film, to make it on a big platform, share it worldwide, you know, meal ticket.
It's crazy. Like waking up yesterday and being able to go to Amazon. And as soon as you open up, you got meal ticket right there. So I think having that opportunity to make our first film, it be on Amazon, and then be able to tell this story about such a historic game. And for me, it was like the founder, you know, Bob Gagan. So nobody know who created the McDonald's All-American game. You know, I think when we were asking people that question during the interview, we would get all kind of random answers to it, you know. So for us to be able to really tell that story and show the history of how it started, how it came about, how it's still here, it means a lot. And I feel like because we were the first people to be trusted with telling this story, to putting this history out there, that just makes us a part of the history now too, which makes us feel like super excited. And the fact that we're able to put a light on Bob Gagan, tell his story, and show people that he created this game that may be the reason why you know who your favorite player is to this day, why they had the career that they had. And maybe now that this film is out here, his story's out here, he may wind up being able to go into the NBA Hall of Fame, Naismith Hall of Fame.
That'd be great. Corey, Carlton, thank you very much for joining me. Can you let our audience know where they can find on social media, any upcoming projects, and anything else you want our audience to be aware of?
Yeah, so they can find us on at StonyandYates.com, STONY and Yates, YATES, at Stony and Yates. And yeah, so we have some stuff that we are for sure working on, and we still have the production company, of course, and we have a lot of beautiful projects that we're building towards that I think the world needs to know. Is some Chicago stories that I think is worldwide stories that we're getting ready to bring to the light, and the momentum is moving. We can't wait to share, you know?
Yep, same. We hope everybody enjoys Meal Ticket, out now on Amazon. And yeah, like Carlton said, it's a good basketball time, good weekend, good month for everybody. You know, if your team gets eliminated, you know, watch Meal Ticket, cheer you
Right.
up.
Like North Carolina fans right there, go watch Meal Ticket, man. Look at the good old days of James Worthy and Jordan, you know?
Right. Appreciate to you both. Congratulations on Meal Ticket. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin.